Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
And we are back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and joining us and making his 16th appearance with us on the show is AT&T Sportsnet host and TNT guest Hall of Famer Paul Alexander. And Paul is one of the best sports hosts on TV or radio anywhere in the country. Pittsburgh sports fans can hear and see Paul hosting the pre- and post-game shows for the Penguins now. The Pirates here very soon on AT&T Sportsnet Pittsburgh. Also covers the Steelers. He's been a fantastic contributor with us here on the show as well, and we are honored that he is back with us again tonight. Hey, Paul, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, gentlemen, how are you?
Wow, we're fantastic. How are you, my friend?
Oh, never better. You know, it's wind chill, I think, below zero tonight. It started the day as like a wet rain. Now it's turning into a mix. You know, the really unbelievable wintry mix. I mean, does it get any better than that?
Indeed. So, Paul, we haven't spoken since the Steelers lost to the Jags in the divisional round, and that was as poorly a coached game as I think I've seen in a very long time, particularly on defense. Curious to get your thoughts. What happened? The defense was so good, and then it just didn't it never showed up for that game.
Well, you know, where do you start? I mean, we're in an era now in the NFL where, you know, defense doesn't win championships anymore. It just doesn't. So when you put up 42 points, it's real easy to say, how in God's name do you lose that game? It has to be the defense. But when you look at the fact that the offense really gave up 14 points and contributed to the cause, you know, that Jacksonville was really challenged to put together offensively, as much as the defense did not get any pressure on Blake Bortles, did not force the issue as they should have, it's still, to me, when you know you clearly have, I mean, did you see the Pro Bowl? I don't watch Pro Bowls, by the way. I did. That would be against everything that I believe in. But I did see how many Steelers were there. Excuse me. And they were all basically on the offensive side. I mean, the entire offensive line. Then you have, you know, the best receiver in football, arguably the best running back in football, a future Hall of Famer at quarterback. You simply have to find a way to outscore the opposition. And in the meantime, what you can't do is throw a bad pick and have a strip sack or any of those things that, if you allow those things to happen, you allow the other team to win. And while I'm certainly not going to defend what was really a ridiculously poor defensive effort, when you realize how you're stacked talent-wise, offensively, you simply can't make those mistakes. And you want to look at the team that's representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, you know what they don't do? They don't make those two mistakes that cost you that game. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and the New England Patriots, as much as they're despised, and I think rightfully so, they don't make those mistakes that prevent you from going to a Super Bowl. They just don't.
And to take that a step further, Paul, speaking of mistakes, when you look at the 2 fourth-down calls, when they needed less than a yard and they run a sweep to the right and then they try to throw a pass on the second one, was that Haley outthinking himself, or was it something else?
You know what? I watched Drew Brees in a playoff game call his own quarterback sneak, and he's about 5'11", maybe 200 pounds. Ben Roethlisberger is 6'5", about 260 pounds. And whenever, you know, there's a play that kind of like has like success that wasn't really called for. Ben will say that, well, AB and I made eye contact at the line of scrimmage, and we decided to go ahead and do a little something a little different. But whenever Ben doesn't on, fourth and a foot, fourth and a yard, call his own number and, just take his body forward for a first down, he puts it on Todd Haley. Do you ever see Tom Brady, by the way, he says he simply touches his center's rear end, he centers the ball, and they go without telling anyone else. It's that easy to get that half a yard, that foot, that yard, whatever, on a quarterback sneak. So what really infuriates me is how Ben Roethlisberger will throw, and he basically got rid of Todd Haley by basically throwing him under the bus. When a play works, Ben will say that he decided to audible at the line of scrimmage, call something that maybe wasn't sent in from the sideline. When it works, it was Ben deciding it was a good idea. When it doesn't work, Todd Haley didn't call the right play. I'm sorry. I'm tired of that. And the most talented offensive team in the AFC is not representing the AFC in the Super Bowl because they're not collectively together. They're not on the same page. They're individuals. They're not a team. And it's just really, I think, reprehensible. And Chris, as you pointed out, it's a horribly coached game. And when you find out that your star running back didn't bother to show up for the walkthrough before the game, showed up late, in terms of when you're supposed to be there on game day, is Le'Veon Bell. That's horrible leadership. That stuff is simply not acceptable. And winning is a culture. Winning is a mindset. Winning is an attitude. Winning is playing for one another. Winning is when I'm a part of this. I'm not everything. It's not about me. It's about the team. And the Steelers right now are simply watching the Super Bowl because they weren't a team. They didn't play for one another. They weren't led in a way inspired them to be just a sum of the part. No, they wanted to be everything. And all the drama, and every single week, one thing, if you're in the sports talk industry in the Pittsburgh area, you're in heaven because every single day something else comes out that is basically ludicrous because Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots simply do not tolerate that nonsense. And that's why an inferior talent, as far as the team is concerned, will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl on Sunday, as opposed to a team that was built and designed and crafted to be all that. And that's what, when we're parents and we're growing up playing sports, the most talented team doesn't always win. That's why you play the game, right? Isn't that why you go ahead and line it up and play the game? Because if you can be well coached and be disciplined and be selfless, care more about the team than you care about yourself, you have a common goal, well, you can go ahead and shock the world. You can beat Georgetown and get beat by Villanova. I mean, some of the great upsets that we've ever witnessed have happened because of a collective mindset where the team is more important than the individual. Bill Belichick somehow, some way, makes that happen each and every year. I mean, I don't know who's going to win on Sunday. I know Philadelphia's more talented. I have a good feeling New England's going to win.
So to that end, Paul, and I've been saying this for the last few years, the Steelers feel like a collection of me guys. AB's a me guy. Le'Veon Bell is a me guy. They got a bunch of me guys, not team
Correct.
guys. So to that end, right, it's like the tail wagging the dog, right? Is that a Tomlin issue that he can't get these guys to see the team over the me, or where does it ultimately fall? Because it doesn't seem like the Rooneys, don't do that, right? They don't fire coaches. We've had 3, right, in my lifetime. So where does it ultimately have to rest on trying to get these guys to be a team?
Well, I think what it takes is, you look around, and when you treat people like adults and you expect them to be responsible and respectful, you get the Steelers. If you don't tolerate any nonsense, which is Bill Belichick, you get the Patriots. So, yeah, but there's only, to me, one guy in the entire NFL that has commanded and earned the respect of these, multi-millionaire players that make a whole lot more than the coach, and realize that, you know what, if they don't, treat me right here, I'll go somewhere else. It's really the inmates running the asylum, except for in New England, where there's a culture. And I'm a good friend of Josh Miller, who punted for the Steelers and then punted for the Patriots. And he said if he had a bad day punting the football on Sunday, he knew on Tuesday he would see coming through the cafeteria a couple of free agent punters walking into Bill Belichick's office, just to let him know, if you don't get it together, you will be replaced. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. I think that's kind of a real harsh way to run a business. But you know what? It's a very effective way to run a business. And Bill Belichick doesn't care. You see him with the cutoff hoodies and the way he handles the media, go way back to Tony Dungy interviewing Mike Tomlin on Sunday Night Football well before it was decided that, the Steelers and the Patriots would play again. He talked about how Tomlin did, about how he was getting ready for the Patriots. Granted, I think we all know that's reality. You simply don't say that. You play it a game at a time. You're boring as hell, and you do not ever give anyone bulletin board material. You don't ever go beyond protocol, and the protocol is we play it one game at a time. I don't care if they're, if they're the 0-13 Cleveland Browns, if they're playing us, they're a dangerous team, and we got to worry about them and beat them on Sunday. So, yeah, the Steelers really fell into the trap of looking ahead, not being about a team, and not really being focused on the job at hand.
Bob, a couple of questions for Paul before we let him go.
Paul, I just wanted to stay right on the Tomlin thing because, again, what I saw was being a lot about coaching in the playoffs especially, but even when it was all over, Paul, all we heard from the Pittsburgh people was, look, the guy wins games. They were 13-3 this year. He's 56 games over 500 in his career, and that's their comeback. And we know, again, Paul, in this day and age, when you don't get out of that conference to the Super Bowl in 8 years, you can't solve New England. It's amazing. He's almost got Teflon quality now. Do you think it might be time? Are they just waiting for New England to lose their entire coaching staff and try to get it in one of these years?
Bob, that's a great question. And it is really hard to find fault with Mike Tomlin's record. But unfortunately, and I think Chris kind of touched on it, when you watch the dynamic of a game, and the thing I love about being Pittsburgh born and bred, we have an incredible bevy of legendary high school coaches in this area. So we all, and this is like, we're talking like, if you're 6 or 7, you probably have a good idea of how a football game should be coached. You know how to manage the final 2 minutes of a half and the final 2 minutes of a game. And Mike Tomlin, unfortunately, with the onside kick and the other things, he has been horribly outcoached. Horribly outcoached. His time management is embarrassing on so many levels. I mean, we're talking about 13 and 14 full-time assistant coaches on most NFL staffs. And some of his challenges have been abhorrible. So, yeah, I mean, the record actually is impressive, and if you would take a look at it, but if you take a look at his game day management of a game, it's pretty bad. And there are games that you just leave out there because you didn't outcoach or you didn't at least live up to what should be expected of an NFL head coach. But, like, where do you go from here? I mean, you win divisions, you play, in the playoffs every year for the most part. I mean, when you look at the rest of the NFL and you judge accordingly, who's better? Yeah. Who do you find that really from a resume standpoint, or someone that you think is actually going to take you to that next level, or, that coach that's going to beat the Patriots when you need to, and you look at, as much as you want to be critical of Tomlin, that idiotic, survive the ground rule in the NFL, they beat the freaking Patriots. They play, a home game. They don't have to deal with what they dealt with this year in the playoffs because they had New England beat in that game. So it's really kind of difficult to be hypercritical of Tomlin. It's just frustrating when the team that you support, the team that you follow, is more talented than the team that beat you. That's hard to deal with. Yeah. So immediately you go to coaching, right? Mm-hmm. That's where you go. If my team has, 15 people in the Pro Bowl and there's no reason in the world that it should have lost to your team, you have to go to the head coach, especially when it's disciplined, when it's not being focused. So, yeah, it's very difficult. I love Mike Tomlin, the human being. I mean, this guy graduated from William and Mary. He's a brilliant guy. His clock management, his game day coaching is very suspect. It truly is. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, guys. I really don't.
And just a little more of that, Paul, about Roethlisberger. You and I had this exact same conversation last year at this time. Can he come back and do it again? Well, he comes back and he basically does the same kind of statistics as he did the year before, if not a little better, Paul. And now he's another year older. He'll be 36 and a half when the next season starts. He doubted himself in a moment of weakness last year, but how much longer, I'll ask you again, how much longer can he do it?
Well, he does have 2 more years at $19 million per. And again, you hate to make sports a business, but we all know that it is. I don't think anyone in their right mind, with the ability that he still has and the proficiency in which he played, walks away from that. And you consider that his offensive line now keeps him, so clean, so upright. You have the best receiver in all of football, and Juju Smith is, one of the best rookies, we've seen in a long time at the receiver position. Martavis Bryant straightened his act out, and he is just a freak of nature at 6'4" that runs a 4.4. So I think he sticks around for at least 2 more years, which would pay him, $19 million plus $19 million, that's $38 million. I think you stick around for that. When you are legitimately a Super Bowl contender, for those final 2 years, why the heck would you walk away from that?
Paul, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the things you're doing, both online and over social media.
P. Alexander 44 on Twitter, and on Facebook and AT&T Sportsnet, where we're. I don't know if you guys have kind of noticed the Penguins, who had everyone here a little concerned that maybe they're a little worn out after a couple of straight, 2 straight Stanley Cups. All of a sudden, I think they won 9 of their last 11, and they're going to make some noise down the run. So, AT&T Sportsnet is where we do our Penguins pre and post game shows, and we're not that far away from Pirate baseball. And you know what, guys? You know what I'm really happy about? That we didn't have time to talk about the Pirates.
We'll make up for it.
I just tell you, Paul, and it's true. We're out of time. We've got our next guest, Bo Bach, patiently hanging on the line. But I had a lot of questions for the Pirates, so we got to get you back soon. Yeah, to get to that nightmare.
I may be busy the next time you want to talk about the Pirates. I might have some conflict or something.
I
God bless you guys. You're the best.
So are you, Paul. Thank you so much. We'll catch up soon, my friend.
All right. Take care. God bless you.
All right.
Good night,
see you, Paul. That's a great Paul Alexander. Again, AT&T Sportsnet Pittsburgh is where you can find Paul doing the pre- and post-game shows for the Penguins now, and like you said, soon with the Pirates. But, yeah, Bob, I got a lot of questions about the Pirates. Holy cow. It is amazing. It's unfortunate it worked out that way, but we got to get him back soon.
Yeah, next time it'll be no Steeler talk, just Pirates.
Yes.